Би жаргал сайхан байна. Та юу чадхаа, юу байгаагаараа, хаа байгаа газараа хичээнгүүлэн хий. Теодор Рузвельт.
Роберт Уильям Coombes Untitled Chapter-д банкны хятад Япон хариуцсан compliance-ийн албан дарга санхүүгийн үйл ажиллагааны үзүүлэлтийг сайжруулах, санхүүгийн зохицуулагч байгууллагуудтай сайн харилцаа тогтоох, үйл ажиллагааны бүтээмж, үр дүнг сайжруулах нь түүний ажлын гол зорилго юм. Ноён Coombes Untitled Chapter-д банкны шугамаар Сингапур, Таиланд улсад ажиллаж байжээ. Роберт Лондонгийн Guildhall их сургуулийг санхүүгийн үйлчилгээний зохицуулт чиглэлээр мастер зэрэгтэй төгссөн. Эхнэр 3 хүүхэдтэй. Биеийн тамирын дасгал хийх хоббитой, технологи сонирхдог.
Би жаргал сайхан байна. Та юу чадхаа, юу байгаагаараа, хаа байгаа газараа хичээнгүүлэн хий. Теодор Рузвельт. Сайн байцгаана уу хүнд үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай програмд Untitled Chapter банкны Монголд урилгаар ирсэн ажилтан банкны заавал гүйцэтгэх шаардлагыг хариуцсан мэргэжилтэн Роберт Coombes оролцож байна. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Mongolia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about your mission to Mongolia.
I've been asked to come to Mongolia by Han Bank and also in collaboration with the local regulators to participate in the first compliance conference on Friday morning. Compliance is very important for banks for a variety of reasons. But first of all, compliance is about giving employees the right mindset in how to do business, which means doing business in a way which is sustainable, and therefore that's good for the revenue of the bank, but it's also a way which is then good for the clients, treating clients fairly, treat them how you'd want to treat them, making sure that the bank is acting in the best interests of its clients and not looking to disadvantage them.
Okay. Before we go into this compliance, which is very important for Mongolian banks at the current stage, and I think at the NEH stage in the future, let us talk about a little bit about your bank, Untitled Chapter.
Yes.
Tell us about your bank. What is this, and what is the position in the world banking market?
Well, Standard Chartered is a British bank. It's been established for over 150 years. We're currently in over 70 countries with over 72,000 employees. So we're therefore a large international bank with a vast range of different products across different client segments.
Why would your bank, you said across the world, okay, regions, why you are not opening your branch in Mongolia?
Well, that would be obviously subject to local regulations too. But Standard Chartered is a bank that focuses strategically on Asia, Africa and the Middle East.
Well, Mongolia has become a strategic destination for Asia.
Absolutely.
Would you come?
I think if the conditions were right from a regulatory perspective, and of course the bank's seniors are interested in doing that, then it's something that could be entertained. But that would be for a decision.
Regulatory perspective. What do you mean?
Well, I understand at the moment that the current legislative framework doesn't allow for foreign bank branches in Mongolia.
As a branch?
As a branch.
Surprise. I thought it would allow any bank to come.
Not yet.
Is it, again, it's probably a compliance matter, in Mongolia, minimum requirement for a bank to open a certain level of equity, which is probably the base of other compliances also. Okay. You have been working in your particular narrow specialization is compliances.
Yes.
Several years now in China, Shanghai, then in before that in
Thailand,
Bangkok, right? How is it like working in China, in Shanghai, as a compliance professional?
Well, I think first of all, Shanghai is a very vibrant city, constantly changing and developing very quickly. I've been there 2.5 years and seen a number of changes in that time. As a compliance professional, it's very challenging in terms of the local regulatory system, where there's multiple regulations, multiple regulatory visits. But then also at the same time, it's a good opportunity to learn and grow, which is something that I'm interested in as an individual.
Okay. You said there are multiple regulatory offices visiting. Who are
Yes.
they, those who's visiting commercial banks like yours? You have a branch in Shanghai.
Yes.
So what kind of visitors would it be?
Well, actually in Shanghai, we're locally incorporated as a separate legal entity. There are 3 key regulators that would impact on a commercial bank in China. The CBRC, which is in essence the supervisory bank, the SAFE, which would regulate foreign exchange, and also PBOC, which is the central bank. And they operate at both national level and also provincial level and city level. So in a bank with multiple presence across China, you could have multiple visits from each of the 3 regulators in each city.
At a different level.
Absolutely.
So you, being in Shanghai, you have visitors from provinces and
Yes.
from the city,
Yes.
even district.
Yes, you can.
How do you survive? It's multiply about 9, 10, probably at least once a year visit.
Well, ultimately, the regulator may have a full-scale branch visit, but also it would do targeted inspections, where it would come maybe just for a few days and look at a particular topic of which it's most interested. So you'd have multiple visits throughout the year across all of your cities, but multiple visits within the same city too, but looking at different topics.
Okay. What kind of operation Standard Chartered do in Shanghai? Is it commercial, investment, or what kind of operations?
All operations, retail banking, corporate banking across all of the client segments, from SMEs all the way through to multinationals, also private banking, and also investment banking.
You said you are locally incorporated.
Yes.
So it's a Chinese bank, actually.
Well, it's locally incorporated in China, but it's wholly owned by Standard Chartered in the UK.
You have your own balance, right?
The own
financials.
Yes.
And then it will be consolidated into
the group.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What is your total asset of the bank now? In Shanghai.
In Shanghai. Sorry, I should know that answer. It's just slipped my mind.
Okay. Compared to other banks, how big your bank? Who is the largest foreign bank in Shanghai?
There are primarily 3 large foreign banks in Shanghai.
Okay.
And they can be measured using different tools, and therefore their order can change, but ultimately that's HSBC, Standard Chartered, and BEA.
Interesting. How do you feel pressure or competition from Chinese banks?
In China, the foreign banks are not really competing with the local banks, primarily due to size. The total value of the foreign banks in China is just 2% of the whole market.
Wow. So it's a very, very miserable.
Yes.
Okay. Then, so why would you go there? If you altogether that small, tiny share of market, what is your interest to go there?
Well, I think, first of all, Standard Chartered's been in China for over 150 years, initially as a representative office, before then converting to a branch, and then going to local subsidization in 2007. There's still the opportunity to increase revenue and shareholder value by being in China. And for an international bank, it's just not about the revenue generated in China, but it's also about providing services on a cross-border basis.
In terms of investment banking, would your operation would be compared to every Chinese bank larger? How do you work with the growing Chinese bourgeois market?
Right.
In another way.
Yes. Well, it's a very interesting question, and to some extent a rather complicated one. Standard Chartered is a commercial bank, and therefore some of its activities are restricted because of its banking license. So at the moment, Standard Chartered can provide acquisition financing, but wouldn't, for example, be able to provide advisory services.
You would not. Say compliances, you said about this, other regulatory requirements for banks, and you're going to be at the conference here in Mongolia. What are the most important compliances for commercial banks?
I think there's a lot of elements to good compliance that a commercial bank should have and be thinking about. It's about the products that you are selling and making sure that you're considering the compliance elements of those products before selling them. You want to make sure that you've had a good consideration of the risks for the clients, the end users of those products. With regards to how those products are marketed, making sure they're marketed fairly and clearly, and that there's nothing hidden for the end user.
See, in terms of Mongolia now, so far commercial banks are separate. Investment banks, we have quite young, a lot young, newly born investment banks. Should it be together? Should commercial banks run investment banking activities? How does it work in terms of compliances?
It's not so much about the organizational structure that either creates or dilutes the compliance risk. The compliance risks from those activities can arise from various areas regardless of how they're structured. The key concern is regarding control over the employees' activities, of course the values of the organization, and of course making sure that you have good supervision over the activities of the bank.
Okay. In terms of supervision, in Mongolia, of course, there is independent auditing requirement. Then the central bank goes and makes supervising exams once a year. How often it should be, and what are those areas where they have more attention?
The different regulators have different ways of supervising their banks. I told you earlier about China with the multiple inspections throughout the year.
Yes.
If you take Japan as another example, it's generally one inspection every 3 years. So different jurisdictions have a different way of supervising their banks. Making sure that a bank has an effective internal audit function is essential in order to raise concerns internally within the bank and address them, rather than allowing a regulator to find them and therefore taking action at a later date.
When you talk about internal auditing system, the chair or the head of this auditing office or committee, whatever, in a commercial bank,
yes,
this head of that unit, does it report to the CEO or does it report to chairman of the board?
A head of internal audit would ordinarily report to the audit committee.
Audit committee of the board?
Of the board. And therefore would be wholly independent of the businesses.
Okay, so that means the head of this audit department is subject of removal or approval by that board, not by the CEO.
Yes.
Okay, how in terms of daily work? Because CEO is running a whole business, and he has to be informed about whatever is going on internally.
Yes.
How does it work?
It works on a matrix management basis. So therefore, if you as the head of internal audit, making sure that the CEO was aware about your activities, your findings, your concerns, making sure they could be addressed is of course key as part of that role. But of course the independent reporting to the audit committee is equally as important because the audit committee has overall supervisory oversight for the bank.
You said matrix management?
Matrix management.
Okay, so the particular function could belong to several rows or columns, right? Different structure.
An internal audit function would usually be an independent function within a bank.
Okay.
So as not to compromise its unbiased, independent view when conducting audits.
When they report do not much, say, they report, this department, do not much with the external independent auditing, what happens?
Do you mean an external audit from the regulator?
Yes.
When they don't match?
Or say any information that CEO was receiving from internal audit department?
Yes.
Okay, that report is presented to the board committee, etc. But
Yes.
this whole picture of the internal situation in the bank
Yes.
at the end is different than the supervisory regulatory checks, and plus the independent external auditing, annual auditing report. When it don't match,
Yes.
what does that mean? What it would be?
Well, I guess it could mean a whole variety of different things. Whether or not perhaps the regulator had a very different focus from the internal audit team. There could be that the internal audit function was ineffective in carrying out its role. It could mean a whole manner of different things.
Okay, let's go back then to the basis of the compliance is that internationally agreed is Basel I, II, now even 3 committees, right?
Yes.
Please tell us about Basel II. What is this?
Basel II is a mechanism for banks to apply a risk methodology to manage its own risk within a framework in order to reduce its capital.
Okay, a lot risk is associated with the capital adequacy.
Yes.
And how you are risk-weighted calculation is made in terms of your different spectrum of your assets.
Yes.
What is the required ratio of Basel II and Basel III?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm not a Basel II and a Basel III expert, but within Basel II and Basel III, there are various models which a bank can also apply for, and all of which can therefore impact on the capital adequacy requirements of a bank.
Okay. Basel is a city in Switzerland where the bankers get together and agree to certain parameters of this risk management, right?
Yes.
In terms of compliance, do you have any internationally agreed, like Basel II, certain parameters, or it is specific to every bank?
Yes. I think that Basel I, Basel II, and that you're right, Basel III will be coming along the line, is in essence the international standard for capital requirements of a bank.
So when it goes to a bad loan,
Yes.
provision for bad loans, right?
Yes.
Do you have a particular ratio or a certain particular threshold to increase more risk awareness of a bank?
The provision amount for non-performing loans is usually set by a local regulator,
Regulatory.
and therefore can change on a jurisdictional basis.
But at best, in order to be more risk averse, you may change or you may even tightening those requirements, no?
By making more provisions?
Yes.
You could make more provisions, but from my experience, the provision requirements set by each regulator are adequate.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that we have two commercial banks bankrupt in Mongolia, and there was not adequate level of supervision or accuracy of supervision, and also looks like not adequate terms for compliances. What is the most important thing for commercial banks to, in terms of compliances, to pay attention?
I don't know about that, those particular cases and what the lessons learned from those are. You know, for me, compliance is about having a strong, robust framework, which is about having strong policies and procedures which are going to influence the behavior of the staff. And that cuts through all of the organization. You know, whether we were talking about the capital requirements, or how we're selling products, how we're managing complaints.
Based on your practice, in order to have the best required behavior of staff, employees, what are the most important parameters, most important conditions you have to pay attention as executive of the bank?
Well, I think the first thing is establishing the values of the organization from the top of the organization, and then making sure that they are firm, well understood, and that non-compliance with those values will not be tolerated.
For example, tell us about some story where the values were misunderstood at that level and got the problem.
Well, I think, for example, we've seen lots of organizations throughout history with very good written values. We could take the Enron story as a good case in point. Very strong corporate values. And then we found that from the top of the organization, the financial records were being altered to create a fictitious picture of events at the company. And of course, then we found lots of documents being shredded, both of which are values which were not permitted within the organization, and yet they seem to have been words with no substance.
So there may be written good values, everything, but when it's actually not implemented, in particular from the top, there's more risk.
Absolutely. I think that employees know when the values are understood and enforced at the top of the organization, and then they follow.
What is the most important value for a bank employees as well?
Trustworthy. Integrity.
Okay. Tell us trustworthy and integrity.
Trustworthy and integrity is about doing the right thing. It's about doing things for the right motives. It's about being open, transparent, cooperative. It's about doing things which you're proud of, and it's about avoiding things which you would be ashamed of doing.
Integrity.
Integrity in a banking sense is all about the way in which we're dealing with clients and with each other as employees and also our regulators. It's about being honest, not concealing the truth, making sure that we are painting the correct picture of events and not misleading anyone, perhaps by things that we don't say.
Well, so this is two, say, character traits to employees working in bank, probably in any corporation.
Yes.
In terms of value of the corporation, we talk about now social responsibility, corporate responsibility, or corporate good governance. How do you, as a compliance professional, understand the social responsibility of commercial bank, any bank?
I think it has lots of different prongs to it. If I can tell you a bit about the Standard Chartered experience that I've had, first of all, social responsibility is about lending in the right circumstances and lending to be a force for good, and therefore not supporting practices which are not socially sustainable. It's also about helping the local community. So at Standard Chartered, for example, we give every employee 3 days volunteering leave every year, which is paid to help out the local community.
Wow.
We also support some very large charities such as Seeing is Believing, which is preventing curable eye disease, and also Living with HIV, which is preventing HIV, the spread of HIV, but also the support of those infected with HIV.
So you encourage your employees to contribute to social problem solutions.
Absolutely.
In a way, as you suggest.
Yes.
Wonderful. You're going to have a speech at this conference.
Yes.
Please tell us what is your main messages you want to give to our audience so that they understand, because our audience want to understand more about banking sector in particular.
Right, well, thank you very much. The key message that I'd like to give is that building a robust compliance culture within a commercial bank is essential to its existence and should be part of its DNA. That's about building a framework of policies, procedures, controls, with assessment and monitoring to make sure everything is working, but ultimately using compliance as a revenue generator, that clients would be attracted to a bank because of its good track record in compliance, and they know that when they deal with that bank, they're going to get a service which is honest, reliable, open, and transparent.
So this is a universally recognized and acceptable principles of compliance.
Yes.
Okay. We have a certain programs, visions, a lot of discussions about possible regional financial center to be in Mongolia. How does it sound? Is it possible, and what we should follow for that?
A regional financial center.
Banking center. We mean in particular China and Russia. We are in between two large giants.
Yes.
Our big neighbors, and we want to be a place where citizens of these countries come freely take financial service because we provide better services than in their own countries.
Yes.
What do you think? How realistic is this?
Well, I think all things are possible, but I think it would take an awful lot of work, effort, determination, and quite some time.
Quite some time.
Yes.
Okay. In Switzerland, that's what they made already, the center. How long it took a time? Hundreds of years, huh? I wish you have more dialogue with Mongolian bankers, and compliance is that's what we need to improve here, and otherwise we don't have, say, for example, in Mongolia, not yet have merger and acquisition of commercial banks. So it says something to me that there is a certain infrastructure for that merger and acquisition is not existing.
Right.
Rating system, proper independent evaluation system of your assets, risks, etc. Am I right? And what must be done?
I can't speak specifically for Mongolia because my level of expertise is very, very low. But I recognize the things that you've said. And I think that the financial system here is developing and it's growing. The whole market seems to be very vibrant, and everyone seems to be very upbeat here. So I think that I see Mongolia as having huge potential and opportunity.
Mongolia is like a growing too fast child. The internal system is not really the bud is keep growing, ballooning.
Yes.
And hopefully we will match that growth of body with our growth of internal system of support. Anyway, Rob, your hobby is health, fitness, you said. What kind of fitness?
I like running, and previously in another country, I very much like rowing, dragon boat racing, and outrigger canoeing. Absolutely, but now my main focus is on running and doing some work in the gym, just to stay healthy so that I can be a good parent and husband to my family.
Looks you are. Running, do you participate or do you run? How big distance do you
I used to run long distances, and I ran the London Marathon several years ago.
That's what I was trying to.
But my running today is limited to about 5 kilometers.
Every day?
Every day.
Every day.
Yes.
Shanghai, in which on the bank on the river area, or where?
Generally, I'm afraid to say it's usually on a treadmill to save my joints
in your gym,
and stay out of the weather.
So you're running every morning 5 kilometers. How long it took the time?
Generally takes me around 22 minutes.
22?
Yes.
Including your exercise?
Yes.
Well, you go in and go out 22 minutes?
No, just the running part is 22 minutes.
Well, altogether?
I generally work out for about an hour each day.
An hour?
Yes.
You work out at which time?
I work out at lunchtime, which gives me the benefit of having a break in the middle of my day and makes me fresh for the afternoon.
Wow. So you have this facility, you just run at lunchtime nearby your office?
Yes, very
wonderful,
near.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
How is the air in Shanghai? Is it hard? Is it good? How clean is the air in Shanghai?
I generally don't follow the pollution reports, so I'm certainly no scientist. But I found it to be fine and okay. I'm a family of 5 now, and we've all been very healthy since being in Shanghai, I'm pleased to say.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So you are a Shanghai citizen. How you say that in?
I'm a Shanghai resident.
Shanghai resident.
Yes.
A little bit about your resident town. I have been several times to Shanghai. It's there's a little Paris.
Yes.
And there is a walk bank.
Yes, the Bund.
The Bund, yes.
Yes.
You go all the way to the bridge and walk on the. So, how do you see the combination of the history and modern Shanghai? Do you feel it?
Yes, absolutely.
In which way?
Like many cities, Shanghai is split by a river, the River Pu, split between east and west. And Puxi on the west is very traditional, lovely old architectural buildings. There you'll find the French concession area, like you're referring to, lovely restaurants, and also lots of old traditional china. In Pudong, which is on the east side of the river, very modern, very vibrant. We've got the
Hyatt Tower,
Pearl Tower, the Shanghai World Financial Center. There's a new building being built, which is going to be much taller, but very modern. It's the CBD, lots of international banks there, and lots of international stores opening as well.
Okay. So with this note, I hope modern civilization, modern development of Ulaanbaatar city will have the same feature of old time and new time. Okay, what is the book you are now reading?
I've been reading a book about a chapter in the Bible about Nehemiah, who rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. And
that's what's happening now.
Yes.
In a different way.
They've been rebuilt and knocked down and rebuilt countless times. And he rebuilt the walls, not the ones that exist today, completely different, but his leadership capabilities in rebuilding the walls at a particular time against adversity is quite inspiring.
Yeah, that's quite inspiration in the hard work. And I hope in Mongolia there will be such a leadership in development of our commercial banks, including the capacity of meeting the better compliances.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's
All
been
the
a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to you.
Thank you. Би жаргал сайхан байна. Та юу чадхаа, юу байгаагаараа, хаа байгаа газараа хичээнгүүлэн хий. Theodore Roosevelt